Can you hear me? I'll call her. Okay. Yeah, I think it's been opened now. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. And I'd like to welcome you to a special edition of LAIF Direct. For those who have been following us, part of the beauties of this pandemic is that we found time to share knowledge at some point. And we've been having people on board. We've had a break for a while because we're preparing for LAIF Award. And the LAIF Awards are here. This is one of the key programs for LAIF Awards, the LAIF webinars. And we thought that we could also take advantage of that and have a special LAIF and Direct with somebody who has inspired a whole lot of us, a whole lot of new generations of advertising people by the body of his work, his commitment to the industry. And we couldn't think of another person. And it's the best time to do that, considering the fact that this year, but for the COVID-19 restrictions, we would have celebrated the 40th anniversary of Insight Communications. A lot of us were looking forward to that. And of course, for him also, a whole lot of accomplishments, culminating in the launch of his biography just about 2 weeks ago. And if you haven't read it, I think you should go get a copy and read it. It's a whole lot about not just the person, but the industry, as it were. So for me, it's a great honor to be here today because I'm having a rare conversation with the one person who launched me into advertising. Let me put it that way, because MCNA was a baby of Troika at the first second line agency where I started from. And you could see, I mean, it was like a baby to him. He was always there, you know, as a chairman to see what we were doing. And I can't forget our happy hours and the round of suya from him. So for me, this is a great opportunity to say thank you for launching me into a very interesting and exciting career. And I say that on behalf of everybody listening who have also gone through that experience with you. So please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome on LAIF and Direct. No other person. You know, I struggle to call you doctor, but I'll call you doctor today, sir. I'm used to Mr. Dr. Biodun Shobanjo. Well-deserved honor. Thank you so much to be on this, sir.
Well, Lanre, it's my pleasure. I thank you for the sentiments that have been expressed. I cannot recall the last time I was in a gathering of this nature with advertising practitioners, since some of us now belong to what we call the old school. But I think it's really a pleasure and privilege to be with you guys this afternoon. Why Lanre dragged me into this, and of course with other members of AAA, and I wouldn't know, but I hope that we'll have an exciting time this afternoon. And that I don't know what the program is like. I don't know what you guys want me to do, but I'm here, you know.
Okay.
We can spend the next couple of maybe hours or minutes together,
Okay.
just sharing ideas and thoughts.
Thank you so much. I also have on the call here the president of AAAN, Steve Babaeko. Steve, if you can just enable your video, I'd like for you to just say a word or two before we get into the questions.
Yeah. Thank you. I don't even know why my video is not on. But if I can't do that, I mean, the downside to technology, I think because I didn't sign in as people at the back end. But I'd just like to say that thank you, Mr. Adisa, for putting this together. It's, for me, this probably, not probably, I think unarguably the most anticipated LAIF and Direct since you started. Anticipated it is. I had to I had to set an alarm just to not miss this because I know Dr. Shobanjo is never late. He's going to be here early, so I didn't want to miss any part of it. But like you said, actually, he's not the only person that's he kicked off his advertising career. He also kicked off mine. I mean, I think I got to MCNA 2 years after you had left, and like I said at my interview with you as well, I used to go to that black cupboard where you guys used to keep the bromides. I used that. That was my own arts academy, my own art school that taught me about copywriting. And I remember those days when Dr. Shobanjo used to visit us at MCNA. I mean, it was like, it's just come down from Olympus. We used to just anticipate his visit and he would come unannounced. And he quietly worked. He used to paste our works on the wall. And then he's there pulling one of his earlobes and looking at it. And we're just holding our breath to just hear a comment, any comment at all from him about the work and the quality of work. So that for me, I will never forget MCNA. 5 years in that place, I think set the foundation for who I am today. I think he's inspired so many art practitioners in this country and all over this continent. He has every reason to be really, really proud of his contribution to this noble profession. And just to tell you how much he still participates, recently at the executive board, we resolved to ask some of the veterans to contribute. I think he still gave us a very fat check in contribution to the renovation of the secretariat that we're currently carrying on. So thank you, sir, for that. The book, The Will to Win, just to let you know, still reading it. Like I had the opportunity of meeting him like 2-3 days ago at a function, and I told him, I'm reading this thing so nicely because I just don't want to finish it. So I'm reading it like about 5-6 pages per day so that I can just prolong the enjoyment as much as possible. If you don't have it, I encourage you, please go buy it. I think I bought over 50 copies. I'm sending some to some of my students in University of Ibadan. I think more younger people actually need to read this so that we can all learn. And I also want to use this opportunity to encourage some of the veterans and our founding fathers and mamas in this industry. Please curate your story, document it so that we can all learn. There's so much we can learn from you. Finally, I just want to thank Mr. Adisa for bringing this. I know it's going to be, I really can't wait to just enjoy. So enjoy, learn, and let's keep creating. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve. You're not the only one who learned. We'll talk about how I learned and what I did later. But thank you so much. So straight away, sir, Insight started in 1980 at a time when the economy was also going through some turmoil. So it was not a very rosy time to start a business. And here we are in 2020. It's even worse than just the economy. We have a pandemic in our hands. Thankfully, there are vaccines now being approved in the Western world. If you were to start all over, what would you do? What kind of agency would you probably, start? I mean, think back to 1980 and now. What would be different? What would you do differently?
Thank you very much, Lanre. I think the business that we are in is one in which we motivate the consumer to take in a buying decision. I mean, in summary, that's the business in which we are in whichever way you want to look at it. Get the consumer to buy that product which a client has put under your care. Full stop. So therefore, you got to look at what does today's consumer, what does he want? How does he behave? What are his own motivations? Those kind of things, what media does he address? What's his lifestyle? Those will determine the kind of, and you want to work in marketing communication, that will determine where your focus would be. Everybody talks about digital. we also know, or at least I am aware of the fact that we have not been able to curate sufficient information about that consumer. That's why when you look at what's happening in the world today, in the people that actually work in our business, where they tend to place the emphasis is firstly in curating data, information about today's consumer. And that's why, for example, the consultancies are beginning to, if you like, inch into some of the things that we initially thought, was our own area of business. So because they understand how to curate information, they also understand how to use that data to arrive at decisions. Now, we are very weak in that area. And of course, everybody knows that digital is the way that the world is going. Today's consumer, that's what they address. Everybody, I mean, anybody that holds a phone today, you just find that individual touching that phone endlessly, So, and of course, the facts are there. Last year, exit last year, global advertising spend was about 640 billion US dollars. And about half of that amount went on digital. I don't know what the trend is here, but whether we like to believe it or not, we are part of a global village. And I believe that what happens globally would ultimately happen here. So if I was going to set up, if this was 2020 and I'm a 35-year-old man and I wanted to start an advertising agency, quite frankly, my focus would be set up a digital agency, but set it up in a totally different manner from what we all parade today as digital. Because it's much more detailed, it's much more complex, than what we do. If I can use the example of Publicis Group, that we have a relationship, our group has a relationship. When they went and bought Sapien for 2.something billion, I mean, people were wondering what's the meaning of this. So that tells you what I'm talking about. Then they bought Nitro, and they matched both. And one was collecting data, and the other was about actually digital communication. So that's, and they literally are making their money back as quickly as they invested. So that's proving the point that I'm making, that it's not just about being able to take your phone or your iPad and create some communication and say that's digital. It goes far deeper into that. Even the way that you deploy the message that you create on media, for example, on a platform like Outdoor, for example, how do you actually use digital in that context? So those are the kind of things that one would focus on, rather than have all these men who wear suits who are intermediaries between the agency and the client, and it's because ultimately they themselves would have to offer much more than just bridging that relationship in terms of the knowledge that they acquire, the kind of knowledge that they have to be able to be digitally savvy, if you understand what I'm saying. So that's what I would do differently.
Okay, thank you so much. I mean, and I think where that even resonates would be if you look at loving, hating Martin Sorrell. I mean, when he left WPP under circumstances and also, great, he didn't go to start another fashion agency, group as it were. It's more of content and digital inclined. I mean, that's just the reality of where the world is headed. And I hear you loud and clear. Insight is so dear to you. I mean, I read the book and actually finished it today. Unlike Steve, I was hungry to finish it. So there was a part of the book that was almost scary for me, just to see the height of your love for insight. Where you said, look, I love my mom so much. I mean, according to the biographer, she's so dear to me. But if she were to come between me and the interest of insight, I would crush her. So like, I mean, of course, that's figuratively speaking. So it must mean so much to you, this organization that you have built over time. At what point did you feel like this dream was real? Because I mean, you were doing very well at Grant when you started out, but you were not satisfied with where things were headed before you started Insight. For any startup, because there are people watching who are probably just about starting something, or they've been starting something and they're almost discouraged. At what point did you feel like this was real, Insight as a dream?
Okay. When you started preparing this question, as you went on, my mind quickly went to where you were likely to land, and I didn't get it wrong. I knew that was the statement you were going to as you rightly said, yes, figuratively. I think members of my family, I mean, they know how much I loved my mom. She died close on to 100 about 2 years ago now. Even at that advanced age.
Call you a husband.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. Now, again, you have to understand that given that, she had to look after us for like about another 50 years, 51 years after my father died. My father died at 49, my mom died at 99, going 100. So she was there. So I really loved her. And again, figuratively, the point I made was to let my colleagues know that Insight meant so much to me for too many reasons. One, it was and still remains the arrowhead of everything that we've done. That was where we started from. And to be honest, the idea that it would not be successful didn't even cross my mind. But, we gave everything into that company, particularly at its formative stage. And I must thank and praise people who were pioneers, the 18 of us who set out on this journey, six of whom were shareholders of the company. And of course, as you read in the book, there were some shareholders who put down 500 naira at the time. But we wanted to be a different kind of company. We didn't benchmark it against any Nigerian company, at least in our business, kind of business. And true to type, we were very different. We were extremely different when I look back now. So it was all a combination of the sweat, the tears, almost blood that was shed in planting that company and nurturing it. And, it's like you have a new baby, your first child, and that child begins to grow, you don't know what it's like being a father or being a mother, and there you are with this little bundle of joy. So that was what Insight was to us. We worked 7 days a week. We didn't have closing hours. We had closing hours on paper, but there was. I see some of the when I flipping through some of the old pictures that we had, that we took in those days. I look at them, I'm like, oh my God, And then you see the company transition from number 1 Calabar Street. Then we went to a community, and then we went to Jerry. I mean, it was tough, but we enjoyed every minute of it. So and again, to be fair, that company gave us fame and it gave us some fortune. And it was part of that fortune that we also put in establishing other businesses. And as both yourself and Steve have said, it was insight that also gave us the opportunity to give more younger people the opportunity to go express themselves when we started sprouting other companies. Because we knew quickly that there was going to be a glass ceiling, and we needed to create avenues for people to also be able to express themselves. I mean, I think I mentioned it in the book. The day that I was talking about, I wanted an affiliate for M&C Saatchi, and I was talking to Richard Humphreys, who ran Saatchi and Saatchi globally at the time. And I was in his office, and he said, "So, Bibi, so you said, are you saying that you have a second agency?" I said, "Yes, we have a second agency." He said, what was the name? We hadn't formed the company. And I said, "Yeah, the name is MCNA." From the top of my head, I just said MCNA, And he said, "So who are the guys who are your key guys there?" And I said, "Oh, George Umona is the GM, and Jimmy Bankole is our creative." I was reading out names of some of our staff that I knew we would take from inside to go and start MCNA. Yes, so I reeled out all the names that I reeled out. Eventually, we moved to MCNA because they were bloody good people. They were smart professionals, and to think that it was literally, it was inside that gave back to MCNA. The key guys there, all of them came from inside, no outsider. So when you look at things like that, you just cannot but protect that mother hen, as it were, because for me, insight is the mother hen of all our businesses. And that was where we started from. The emotions are there. You look at the company that we started with 128,000 naira and 104,000 naira debt. And then, all those higher purchase things we took from Leventis in those days, generators and air conditioners and things, and tables. Even our tables, we took them on higher purchase, and some of the chairs, Imagine if the thing had collapsed. I mean, the guys would have foreclosed on us at it. So when I look at all of those things, and I remember all of those kind of challenges and interesting scenarios, I just believe that we need to protect that company as best as we can. And as I said, it's 40 years. It's a 40-year-old company. I can't believe it that the company is 40 years already. So Lanre, that explains my views and feelings about insight. Even till today, I still feel the same way about the company. Even though I rarely go there, I mean. but that's the way I feel.
Okay. Thank you so much. Sorry, I mean, you can see it's a bit dark here. I had an outage, but the gen will come on very soon. But we'll just carry on. Okay. I was going to talk in view of that. If you don't mind, sir, I'll just get the blinds off so you can see me a bit better. Okay, I think it's a little better now. Beautiful. Why they get the gen on? Okay, so I was going to talk about the place of sustainability or sustenance, as it were. We were in Abuja last year, and you had a talk, to the advertising industry, and we were referring to a particular report in this day that was talking about certain agencies we would like to consider to be legacy agencies in their own right, either in a state of comatose or out of the scene. And I mean, that worries a whole lot of us who are still in the business. So for me, knowing how close insight is to your heart, how do you ensure that this entity, this institution you have built, can go on after the founders? Because as it were, you and Mr. Awushika are still the custodians of that dream, as it were. How do you ensure that that goes on beyond you?
I think that it's not unlikely that somebody might have had W. Gilby that kind of a question many years ago. I don't know. Even Mr. Blanchet, who started Publicis. But there it was. I mean, the first thing is that I think that any organization that's worth its salt must have a culture. There's got to be a DNA in the place. So the first thing that you try to do is to let everybody understand and if you like, imbibe that culture. So that DNA runs through those individuals. They understand what the dream is, so they act that dream, and they behave in a particular way. And it's like children from a family. You would find that there would be similarities in children of the same parents. So, ideally, and I'm talking about an ideal situation, you would expect, firstly, that that the culture that you have in that institution, that it permeates the system. So one of the things that I tended to do in those days when I was actively involved was to constantly let people understand what our DNA is, so they can behave. And those of you who work with us, you in particular, you were at Insight with us, there were values that we preached. And you could tell that a lot of the leadership of the business, when I use the word leadership now, I'm not talking of necessarily executive directors, even those who are managers and senior managers, they will behave in particular ways. There's a way in which, for example, you taught your people how to even create communication, and that everybody would understand that process. That's part of the DNA. That they behave in a particular way, that for example, they come to work on time, and that they lead by examples. The things that they do, in the way they talk, in the way they treat other people who are junior to them, those kind of values. So insofar as to keep pushing, somebody must drive that. And it's almost invariable. If you are lucky to be part of the people who that founded the company, it's easier to do. But you ask yourself, go to Toyota. If you go on the website of Toyota, I didn't know we were going to discuss it like this, but if you look at great companies, you look at a company like Toyota, who was also founded by a member of the family, and various people have run that company. They will tell you exactly how they want their people to behave, including how they produce every automobile that comes out of their production line. That's the DNA. That's what I'm talking about. So whether those guys have died or they are alive or whatever, in fact, most of the companies that we talk so nicely about, their founders have long died. But you'll find a near consistency following from either the behavior or attitude or the aspirations of the founders of those businesses. So that is why if you work for Toyota, you behave in a different way as opposed to, for example, if you work for Ford. You'll find the similarities. And so that's what we would, thankfully, I have also had the privilege of interacting with so many global organizations. When Bob Jacobi ran Ted Bates in those days, and I'm talking of going back to, there was a particular way in which people who worked at Ted Bates behaved. There was a particular way in which they created their communication. Then when we moved over to Carl and Spiegelville, when they ran the business before Gray bought the company, there was a particular way in which they behaved. Because you will see those leaders of the business, they would attend global meetings and conferences, and they espoused what their own values and the way they saw the business going. They would exchange that. So people learn and will come from different parts of the world to come and listen, because those guys are saying, this is the way we want you guys to behave if you are part of us. If you say you are part of us, if we own your business, even if you're an affiliate, we expect you to behave in this particular way. That's what they're saying telling you, some people may not understand that, but they're saying, when you go back to your country, this is the way we would expect you to behave. And this is the way we would expect you to create your advertising. Leo Burnett, for example, has his way. The man wrote it down the way that he would expect any office where that name tag base is, Leo Burnett is put up. And he said, any office that's not able to do that, they should remove his name from the door. You understand what I'm saying? So that's the way it is. I mean, I would expect, 16 years ago, I left inside. I stepped down or I stood down or whatever it was.
You didn't step aside.
Yeah, and I expect that those who came after me, if they understood the philosophy well, should be able to again continue to preach those values, and that's why I'm not an apostle for bringing an outsider to come and run any of these enterprises. It's got to be somebody from within who hopefully would also have understood what the business, what the company stands for, and they can go on espousing that to their own followership. You know,
So
I think
on the back of
that's
yeah.
I mean, Maurice. Sorry, I was just going to run by saying that if you look at Publicis, for instance, Maurice Levy, who worked with the founder of Publicis, was with his boss for 30-something years before the man stepped aside and died. And so he also was able to continue preaching that, you know, and then when he passed the baton on to Atosadun, again, he had been with the company for some years, and he understood what the philosophies are, and that's what they contribute. One of the things that pissed off, and that really pissed off Mr. Gilvey, when
Martin
Sorrell bought his company. When Martin Sorrell bought it, was the frustration that he felt that his legacy may not be continued. You understand what I'm saying? Because there could be a whole disruption in the structure. They could bring outsiders, you know. So that was one of the concerns. That was one of his unhappiness, to be honest with you. You know,
So on the back of that, sir, you said something very, very good and something to learn from. That it would be good to have an insider who understands, you know, the values, who has grown within the system. Back to the book. I know also that from the book, there was some expectation on your side about a likely successor in the person of your first general manager, Fumion Obolu. And I do know that it's not just about him. There were other people that were also taken through certain kinds of training along the line. But I mean, for some reason, most of these guys did not stay in the system. And then the last person I know who stayed from management traineeship to becoming an MD was Sam Osunsoko. I've let insight about maybe 17 years ago. So I'm just wondering how to get that kind of leadership within the crop of people you have at the moment. I mean, give or take, Mr. Oshika will have to step aside at some point. I know he's got a lot of energy, but somebody needs to carry on. Does that give you concern in terms of getting an insider to push with the dream?
Of course it does. In the case of me, I don't know whether he's participating in this webinar that we are having. You know, when you look at people who you probably feel would be successors, you don't. Well, I mean, there are various styles of doing things, but you don't put it in their faces and say, you know, you are going to succeed me. But quietly, you are working at it. And in the book, as I mentioned, the first time Fumi told me he was going to leave, I told him that it wasn't a discussion point and that I didn't want to discuss the subject matter. And again, to be fair to Fumi, fine gentleman, and I liked him a lot, and I still do, if I can make that confession. I think there are
he's on the
similarities.
call, actually.
Okay, so I think that
he's on the call.
Okay, so I think there are similarities between us. Only that I don't drink brandy as he does. So he's a quiet person. I'm not a quiet person. So when such disruptions happen, as in the case of Fumi, you would have to quickly make your adjustments. And of course, so we all did. You know what happened to inside post-Fumi Onobolu. In the case of Sam, I mean, again, fine gentleman, very professional, and we had hoped that it would also be part of the future of the business. But somewhere down the line, things didn't quite work out, and then, whatever happened, which I think was very unfortunate. But these things happen. You have your expectations. They don't work as you intend, and then it creates the short-circuiting, and it creates some schisms. So in the interim, you need to quickly, if you can, look at your options. I mean, when Sam left, we couldn't find the kind of company that he ran. We had to go outside to bring somebody, Of course, then again, in doing that, like I said, there will be issues of the DNA, all right? There will be, the individual can be brilliant, it can be whatever, but, you have a company that does its things in a particular way, and if there are going to be changes, you expect that those changes would, in fact, be for the betterment of the organization. But the DNA thing is a very critical factor. If it's not there, you just find that something is not working well. So, like I said, I mean, and I say it unashamedly, that I'm an apostle for finding people from inside, grooming from inside. And that's why one of the reasons we started the management traineeship program, that over a period of time, we can find people from within who started from the very beginning. And if you go back to people like Fumi, or you talk about somebody like Sam, they actually they have that DNA. They are real. They are real Troy capital. So we are trying. When you find economic situations impacting your own plans, sometimes the people that you are grooming are less patient than you are. They probably see things that you don't see, and then before you know it, they probably would have disengaged. And even people like you, and people like Sitabe, people like you and Sitabe, and a lot of other people who say no, and somebody came to me a while back and said, Mr. Shobanjo, you really can't blame us for leaving. We wanted to be like you. So what was I supposed to say? The guy says, I want to go and do what you did. So you also have to contend with that, and it's reality. It's real. It's reality. But by the same token, I'm quick to understand that not every good manager can be an entrepreneur. That's the honest truth. You could be a fantastic manager, but you may not be a good entrepreneur. So there's a difference. There are also certain characteristics that you need to have, and it has nothing to do with paper qualification and all that. That if you are not an entrepreneur, you are just not an entrepreneur. It's as simple as that. You keep trying, but you would never. And I can reel out 100 names of good managers who tried and they failed. And it's not because they are not intelligent or they are not brilliant, but they are just not entrepreneurs.
Interesting. Thank you, sir. So let's just go back a little bit. Advertising back then, and a whole lot of your generation came from broadcasting and all that. And one of the things I remember reading is the fact that you thought the guys were more glamorous, they were good suits and all that. And there you were at NBC, not the on-air personality that we know today. You always wanted to be in the thick of things, no doubt about it. And that shows in all the things that you do. So can you just look back and see what worked then, what was great, what you missed then, where we are now? I mean, you're an onlooker in a way now, I mean, in terms of active practice. And there must be something that is working or that is probably better now, or some things that are missing from where you started. I mean, what would you say about then and now?
I think then, what was the motivation for people crossing from the media into, let's say, advertising in particular? People moved from television, they moved from radio, they moved from print media. Somebody like Steve, Sir Steve Omojafo, he came from the print media. He was in Daily Times, and he moved to Lintas, literally across. They were both on Tinubu Street at the time, and he just moved across. And then there were a lot of people, like I said, in television and radio who just, they moved. You saw people who were like them a couple of years back, and they moved to advertising, and it was a better life. It was a much better life. Advertising paid better, particularly if you worked at the very good agencies then that were owned by expatriates, they were run by expatriates. It's one profession where you got your reward almost instantly. And number two was that it opened a new vista of opportunities for you where you could, talking for myself, and people who came from broadcasting in particular, where some of the things you had learned in broadcasting came in very, very handy. So if you presented programs, if you wrote scripts, if you did things, those things you found useful, moving on to advertising. And during my time, wow, you were really developed. There was a lot of investments that were made on people. I mean, I recall that my first year, in fact, by the time I was 3 months in the profession, I was given a set of accounts to work on. And one of the other day I was thinking about, one of the clients I was to work on at the time was a company called Nigerian Paper Mill. They were based in Jebba, and their offices were on Broad Street. We were also at the junction of Broad Street and what's the name of this street now? Martin Street in Lagos. So I was given a set of exercise books, and they said, "Look, we want to advertise this exercise book." And I was literally 3 months in the agency. And there was no copywriter. I was my own copywriter. So I just took the exercise book and I went to my desk and I took my pen and my writing pad, my scribbling pad, and I wrote the headline. A good education starts with a good exercise book. The name of the exercise book was Varsity. Then my subhead was Varsity. So a good education starts with a good exercise book, Varsity. And then I wrote my body copy. Of course, the benefit of having worked in radio, we saw scripts every day anyway. And I wrote some myself. And then if you also had to do a radio commercial, there were studios where you could go. There was the BSWN TV, so you went there, you booked the place and used it. Then there was another studio, I think it was owned by, I can't remember the name, my man used to work at WNTV, and they set up their own little studio there in Broad Street. So you went in there and you produced your own commercials. You look for the voiceover artist, you did everything, if you wanted a jingle, you organized everything yourself. So, and the company where, and it didn't matter, I think in the case of places like Lintas, and they even had specialists. They had a radio produced, somebody who was doing radio production for them. We didn't have any such thing like that. So you had to do it yourself. So it also helped, but because I was coming from radio, I already understood this kind of thing. So the point I'm trying to make is that you were trained to understand everything about the business, from creative to production, and I'm talking of radio production to print production to everything. You just had to learn. We had a print production manager, of course, the late Tunde Fatile. But, you know, ours was one in which you had to open your eyes and your ears and to learn. And guess what? If you didn't learn quick, you were shown the door. And if you did well, you were rewarded. I mean, my first year, I got 100% pay rise. So it was that kind of a thing. Now, today, what happens? And don't also forget that, as I said, there were very senior managers in the place, and I use the word manager very loosely, who were teaching you, they were encouraging you. Even the clients, your clients also taught you. I had a lot of expatriate clients that I was interacting with. People like Bram Brooks, the managing director of Mark Sharp and Dome, all those kind of clients, they were all expatriates. The place was packed full with expatriates. So if you went to a client, for example, your client was patient enough to also educate you. I remember once, I think I was a senior account executive at the time. I went to a client meeting and I gave this marketing director, he was meticulous, very sound, he understood marketing. And so I gave him this piece of artwork. He looked at it and he said, Biodun, can you spell, he called this word. It's one of these words where you don't know whether the A is after the A or the E is after something.
Okay.
So he called
like aesthetics.
So I spelled it, you know. So I spelled the word and now, initially my mind didn't quite go to what he was driving at. So when I spelled it, thankfully I spelled it correctly. So he said, oh, thank God there's still somebody in your agency who can spell the word correctly. But look at this artwork. Look at the way you spelled it. It was wrongly spelled. Wow. You know? And on another occasion, I went to a client meeting. I don't know what happened. Well, you know the way it is, people work hurriedly. The guys in the creative department had again cocked something up, you know. And I got there and the man was furious. He said to me, you know what? Tell your managing director, I want to see him in my office tomorrow by 8 o'clock. Now, imagine I was having that meeting with him in his office in Ikeja at about 4 o'clock. He said to me, I want to see your MD by 8 o'clock in my office. My MD was an Englishman. By the time I knew that by the time I got back to the office, my MD would have gone home. So the business was actually put under threat. So anyway, I got back to the office around 6 o'clock. I went, of course, the MD had gone. I had to drive to my MD's house in Apapa. So I got there and, you know, Biodun, would you like a glass of beer? I said, no. This is more than beer now.
Not beer.
So he knew that something was wrong. So he said, what was the problem? So I told him, I said, Brian said, you have to be in the office tomorrow by 8 o'clock if you are still interested in this business. So he said, you know, he took a look at me and said, what could have gone wrong? I said, I don't know. But he said, you should see him by 8 o'clock. Anyway, cut a long story short, my MD ensured he was in the client's office by 8 o'clock the following morning. And whatever it was, the matter was resolved. He came back and said, look, I think you need to keep an eye on what these creative guys are doing. They're making a lot of error mistakes, And the matter was resolved. So you learned from things like that. And then you also learned from little simple things where management will give you the support. I don't know whether I mentioned this story in the book, where once I went to attend a meeting at EMI, the same EMI where Fela was an artist. And we were also actually at the time handling EMI, and Fela was one of the artists that we were handling at the time. Thankfully, because he and I had been buddies from NBC, I was made to work on the account. So I was working on the accounts, and Fela was. But another story, one day Fela came to our offices, something didn't happen, and I started throwing things from the window on the fourth floor down to Broad Street. Just throwing artworks and layouts, and it just went bananas. Anyway, so back to my story. I remember I was an account executive at this time. I went to attend a meeting at EMI. The client agreed a time. I went there, sat down there, almost 2 hours. This client wouldn't attend to me, so I left. I left Arapa, and I went back. I was going back to the office on Martin Street. Before I got to the office, of course, the client was an English guy. He had called my MD, who was an American at the time, and I reported me that I didn't wait to hold a meeting. So by the time I got to the office, the receptionist said, Jim says you should come to his office right away. So I went to the office of the managing director. Now I'm talking about the kind of things we learned at the time. So I got to the office of my managing director, and he said, Biodun, what happened? You went to see Michael Wells, was the name of the MD of BMI, and you didn't hold the meeting. Why should that happen? So I said, oh, you have the information. I was just coming to complain to you, actually. So I said, well, I don't think that you've had me, so I can go to clients' offices and sit down there endlessly waiting for a client. He said, how do you mean? I said, well, we had an appointment for this time. I got there, I waited for 2 hours, and this guy just kept saying, sorry, I should wait. He was in a meeting. So my MD picked the phone, called him, and put the phone on speaker, so I could hear the conversation. I said to him, said, Mike, I have Biodun in front of me. Is it true that he waited for you for 2 hours? And Mike said, well, he was at the meeting. No, so Jim said to him, no, Mike, I'm asking you a straightforward question. Did Biodun wait for you for 2 hours? And he said, yes. So you didn't see him? And he said, yes, that he was sorry. So Jim said, Mike, you will not treat my executives in this manner. I'm not going to accept it. If you know that you're going to have a meeting, you should not have fixed the meeting. You fixed the meeting. And I think, in fact, so he started apologizing. So the guy said, no, don't apologize to me. You have to apologize to Biodun. I was an account executive. My managing director was fighting for me. So I learned that. So each time I remember the story, I said, this is fantastic. And that explains why I'm always fighting for my staff before clients. There's no client who would ever dare to rubbish any of my staff. I'm going to put up a fight. And I'm willing to lose the business. So those are the kind of things that we learned during our own time. Now, does that apply today? Are people fighting for their staff? I'm not sure. If a client were to complain about any staff, I'm sure MDs of agencies today are going to put up a fight with the staff and say, what do you think you are doing? You want us to lose the business, blah, 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 blah. So those little things that we learned, and in terms of development and training, I am a product of very sound investment by my company. I can tell you that. I was very well trained, both at Grant in particular. I was very well trained. I don't know whether we're doing that now because, of course, the argument would be, I look at the exchange rate. How can we send you to? In any case, where do we want to send this staff to get this training? Because it cannot be that we send somebody to Harvard or London Business School or whatever. No, those are good, but these guys need to experience how it works in other top flight advertising agencies.
Yeah.
Yes. Those are the things that we benefited from. I spent a long time in the London offices of McCann Erickson. As indeed, some of you would know, with the mayor we sent to Germany, Tunde Ogunlaye we sent to Germany. We were sending people to different parts of the world to train so they could see what happens and learn. Because when you see other people do it and you participate in it, it makes you a better person than all of the academic stuff you could get. That's the honest truth. I don't think a lot of that is happening today. I don't think so. So I think those are things that we need to focus on so that our guys can be more rounded, they can understand the subject matter better and see people do it in more sophisticated markets. I think that's also very important.
Very good. Thank you so much, sir. So we'll be taking questions anytime soon. I have 2 questions waiting. So if you have any question, please send them to the Q&A box. Before I take the question, just one topic for me. Prior to your move to signing the Publicis deal, there were a lot of changes, developments in the industry, one of which came from the review, which said that foreign agencies can have, or foreign interests can have more than 25% in the Nigerian agency. Otherwise, they will be seen as a foreign agency working out of Nigeria. But 2 years of this reform. I was just trying to see your opinion where we are. 25% versus, and I'm just trying to see in terms of what it has been able to do for our industry in terms of us being self-reliant and maybe get a few people on board and all that. I had an opinion at some point, and I still believe that we need some kind of active participation from the outside. Part of what you said about learning also, not so much for business, but also for us to groom the talent that we have, that they rub against talent from other places. I thought that maybe if it was a case of, yes, Nigerians will still have the upper hand of perhaps a 51% interest in their business, and foreigners could do 49%. And I think that perhaps we'll have more of an influx of talent and other resources, tools and stuff that could help them. Because I look at where we are. I used to be chairman of the membership committee, and I don't see so much growth. Maybe 1 or 2 agencies, as it were. But as an industry, we're not in ascendancy, so to say. So I was just thinking, could these have been something that could give us some kind of a jolt to rise as an industry? I don't know where you stand on this, sir.
That's a very good question. To be honest, I worry about this industry. I worry about our industry because I don't see growth. I don't see growth.
Yeah.
I talked about 660 billion global spend. How much did clients spend last year? Somebody did a presentation 2 days ago where I don't know how accurate the figures were, where he said clients who spend more than 500 million in Nigeria today on any brand, in fact, even collectively, I think he listed about 6, between 6 and 8. I mean, what's that? That's nothing. Yeah. I mean, when you look at advertising spend in Nigeria in 2019, let's even discount COVID, 2019. Mm-hmm. And you compare it to advertising spend 15 years ago, it will shock you that spend 15 years ago was higher than what it was in 2019, in real terms. In real terms. So the business is not growing. And if the truth be told, when you look at the total number of advertising agencies in Nigeria, and you look at those that have their heads above water, and even those that global agencies would like to partner with, you guys know me, I tell the truth. I don't know whether you'll be able to count 10. Because these guys, I mean, I can tell you because I've interacted with 2, 3 very top global agencies. Their standards are very high. They know what they are looking for, both in terms of the infrastructure that's on ground, both in terms of the talents that are on ground, both in terms of your finances. The challenges are high. what they are looking for, I don't know whether we'll be able to find 10 Nigerian agencies that would pass. You understand what I'm saying? So for me, that's a very major challenge. Unfortunately, the issue you raised, which is about equity participation, I know that, again, the global agencies are not happy that they only have opportunity for 25% equity in the business. They're not happy at all. They don't even know how to treat you, really.
Yeah.
Because they are not used to owning 25% in markets. They're not used to that. Let me make this confession. Before Publicis approached us, because they actually approached us, Martin Sorrell and I had a long meeting over this matter. We were with Gray at the time. And you have to understand, we were with Gray for 18 years. And we knew literally everybody that mattered at Gray in all the key markets. And they knew us. And unfortunately, again, that's the problem of the West. Even when I proposed a 50-50 to them, they said no. Martin said no. We had come from all the various numbers, and I said, Martin, look, let's do this. I would do a 50-50 with you. And he was insisting on doing a 51-49. And I said, no. Why would you have majority? What are you bringing to the party? We built this company from scratch. All right? If we were not what we were, you would not even have come along. So we held this meeting, and he said to me, Bibi, okay, you know what? Let me come to Lagos and meet your board. And I said to him, you'll be wasting your time. There's no point. You could just take it that you're talking to the board, talking to me. Just take it that you're talking to the board. I would do a 50-50 with you, but we won't do a 51-49. And it was on that note that we disagreed and, shook hands, because I didn't see why. And of course, at the time, we weren't doing the International Finance Corporation thing, for audit. And you kept talking about, we need to consolidate the figures in our books. And I said, of course, I also need to consolidate the figures in my books. Because if you come to Lagos to meet our board, every member of our board would align with what I've told you. So don't bother coming to Lagos. But if you want to come on a holiday, you can come, but nothing is going to change. Now, if Martin had agreed to the 49-51, because this was before APCON came up with that regulation of 25%. And guess what? It was shortly after that APCON came up with the 25-75 thing. So that when we started talking to Publicis, the rules had changed. The ground rules had changed. In fact, there was now a formalized way of doing the thing, which was you can't have more than 25%. So when we started talking to Publicis, we said to them, you can't have more than 25%, and they were happy. And the moment WPP had that, we were having that conversation, they now started calling me to say, you know what, we're ready to do 25. The same people who are not willing to take 49 were now saying, we'll be glad to take it. And I said, I'm sorry, it's too late in the day. That's how we parted company. But truth is, insofar as they have such minority equity in the business, would you not be able to get some of the things that you should also get? Some of the benefits that you ordinarily should get because they're equity partners in the business. You understand what I'm saying? Because it's like I said, I can use Publicis as an example. I think it's only in 3 markets in the whole world that they have this minority equity, and they don't even understand it. They are struggling with it. So if the truth be told, that law needs to be changed at some point in time.
Yep.
Otherwise, the Nigerian market, the people in our business will continue to miss out. And you'll find that in a market as close to you as maybe Ghana or wherever, where they have maybe 51% or they have 50%, they are willing to give more. I mean, I can't use us as an example because somehow, I think because of, again, relationships, we can get away with quite a bit of things. But when I'm talking generally now, I know for a fact that if they don't have sufficient equity, they will not give you sufficient enough. That's the honest truth.
And just to buttress your point, sir, I mean, that's why we have not necessarily seen any rush to get involved, to invest in any Nigerian agency beyond, the like of yourself and maybe one or two agencies, as it were. I mean, there's no hurry to say, let us get involved. And I think for me, where the world is today, talent needs to rub against talent. It's not saying that we don't have people who can think, but you need to have a mix, an exchange of people and tools. That's where the world is today. And I think, like Riley said, I sit here and I worry also that our industry is not growing and it's not as competitive as it used to be, even when I started my career in 1990. You could see who was doing now. So I think that's a big concern for me, and I probably speak the mind of a few other people in the industry about where we're headed, and knowing how the world is today, and the fact that we need to compete globally as an industry.
I think if anybody is saying, look, we don't need this global, if anybody says, we don't need these global agencies, after what are they going to do? They don't understand our market. I think that's taking a myopic view of the business. The business is gone global, all right? It's a global business. And I think that we cannot reinvent the wheel. These guys have been at it 100 and something years, 80 years, whatever. They understand the business much more than we do. And it is in our interest to collaborate with them. And I think that partnerships, we should seek for partnerships that work. The current partnership, in my view, does not work. It cannot benefit us because we will be the losers at the end of the day. And I know what I'm talking about.
Great. So let me take questions from our audience. The first question is from Madam President Bumioke. Thanks for supporting all through. She was on the other webinars today as well. So she's been a big supporter of LAIF and Direct. She says, good day, sir. Would you say the mother hen syndrome, which you referred to, has helped positively to keep your flagship company going? And please share an example of these protective over the.
I think Bumi is being mischievous here. This mother hen thing that she's talking about. I think the mother hen thing that Bumi is talking about, at best it is emotional, it is sentimental, to be honest. Because it doesn't matter how much you want to play the mother hen. At the end of the day, it is what the company is able to deliver, all right, that would guarantee its continued sustainability. But that's on one side. On the other side, however, is the fact that because I was a little bit protective of the agency, I think people know that psychologically, I think that's the word. I'm psychologically protective of insights. People tend to behave properly. They tend to do what they need to do. Because there's that worry that, if you don't do these things properly, the chairman is going to crush you or something like that. Fortunately, there was no need for anybody to experiment with that, to see how the chairman was going to respond in the event that I did something that was going to negatively impact insight. The only thing I can recall was somebody who did something that could be regarded as, I'm trying to find the appropriate words to use now. That was inappropriate. Let me put it that way. I don't want to go into details. And we discovered it. And anything that would impugn on the integrity or reputation of the company, I would fight very hard. So I took that individual and I said, okay, you have done this, you have done that, He initially denied, but I then showed evidence that he'd done it. And I told him I was going to fire him. All right. So I then said, not only, so of course he started begging that I shouldn't. He was pleading, other people were pleading, and I said, no. This is not in character with who we are. What you've done could soil the name, the reputation of the company. So anyway, to drive home my point that we will not tolerate that, I took this gentleman to every company of ours. And I will call a staff meeting and I will take him along and say, this is what this person did. And I am going to fire him. But I want you guys to learn from what is done. So I took him around each of the companies at the time to say, we will not accept anybody who does anything to mar the reputation of our businesses. So when I had done that, and I thought I convinced myself that was enough to hopefully help him change his behavior in future and his attitude and reputation, his own behavior. I stepped over the matter for a couple of days and I ended up not firing him. I ended up being a very good manager and he never did that kind of a thing before. So that's the only example I can give. And basically, because of course some of you would also know that some of us got called names and things like that in the course of even building Insight. But it didn't matter because we knew that falsehood was just being paraded. So it didn't bother us. But we kept doing what we had to do. In terms of playing mother hen for Insight, it used to be the case in those days that when we wanted to pitch businesses and we didn't want distractions and we wanted to ensure confidentiality, I would ship the entire team working on the business to my country home in Ijebu, and they would go and do all the creative work, all the whatever for the pitch in my country home. Then they'll come back and we'll just go straight and present it. So I mean, other companies felt jealous that it was only Insight people that were being allowed to go and spend time in my country home and enjoy themselves and all that. So on a lighter note, I think I did things like that.
Thank you.
I don't know whether, Lanre, you remember that on one or two pitches, I don't know whether you must have been with us at the time, or I'm not sure. So but anyway, so people saw that as favoritism for Insight. Why is it only Insight that when they have this, chairman would take them to his country home and I think we had the staff boss at the time when we were doing that. We had that Insight staff boss, which was a Toyota Coaster at the time. So I mean, those tiny little things, and I think it helped. It worked. It made other companies in the group get very, very jealous of Insight, in a sense.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
So, I have another question. Hopefully, we'll wrap this up by 4:30 or so we don't take too much of your time. A question here says, Kayode Olowuse is asking the question, in the course of your career, what's that one chance you regret not taking, if any?
None. None.
Good.
Because, again, this may sound little bit unbelievable. But what my colleagues, particularly those of them in management, will say about me is that I don't let any chance pass by. I don't. I'm very good at smelling chances, opportunities, and I don't let them go. I think that explains why sometimes some of my competitors say that I'm too aggressive. What's wrong with him? He's the only one, you know. Because I'm very conscious of the fact that you only have one opportunity to grab a chance, one. So I never let it pass. So I can't think of, honestly, I cannot think of any chance that I let pass. It didn't happen. I can't remember any. I can't.
So still talking about opportunities, there's a follow-up question from somebody that says, what unseen opportunities did you see that resulted in you establishing Insight? This is from Michelle Defunga. Now, what unseen opportunities did you see at that time?
Well, I think that, to be honest, everybody would say the same thing. Most people, not everybody, most people would say the same thing. I just felt that here was the company I joined. It was number 3 when I joined it. I was going to my end of the 6th year. It was still number 3. We were not a challenger brand. I think the leadership of the business felt that, why are we killing ourselves? You know, we are good enough. We had all those aligned accounts, Coca-Cola and what have you. Why should we kill ourselves? But firstly, I saw that our hunger for business was not what it should be. We didn't challenge for number 2 position, talk less of challenging for number 1 position. Number 3, I thought that our creative products had started declining. And again, the leadership did not see that. So it started affecting morale. And I just felt that, look, something had to give. To be fair to the chairman of the company, to be fair, the day when I put in my letter and he called me and started talking to me, because he was very fond of me. In the period in which I worked for him, the very first, what we now know as, what everybody calls real estate, the first private estate in Nigeria, Agbara Estate, which was, I was invited to the board of that company. I was a very young, I didn't even understand what that business was all about. But he invited me. So he told me confidentially, he said, look, I know that the managing director is and that. I'm going to take him away, put him in another company within the group, and you will take over. So I said, sir, no. I'm too, at 31, I was deputy MD, 31, and that's good enough. What am I doing with MD? So in any case, it will seem, if I were to accept that chance, that challenge, it will seem that my ambition was to become number 1 and get the person who was number 1 out. And that was not my ambition. I wish that the MD could really see things from my own perspective. But his attitude was, look, Biodun, what are we? We are doing well, that's enough. That's, you know. So I thought, you know, we could go out there and do the thing differently and then prove that we could challenge. And we did challenge, and the rest is history, as they say.
Beautiful. Good. So I have a question. So I'll probably just take 2 more questions so we don't go on. Anonymous attendee is asking a question. Is there a future for creative advertising in Nigeria specifically? And if yes, what do agencies have to do to keep their getting poached by other industries that pay better?
Okay, so again, I don't intend to upset anybody, but if you took the chance of inviting me to this meeting, then I believe you must have thought through it properly that this man may tell us some basic home truths. Is there a future for creative advertising in Nigeria? The answer is yes. Just like there's the market for creative advertising in global advertising. Are we really on the right track right now? I don't think so. I don't think so. And I will tell you, this is my honest opinion. I think that creativity, as we all know it, in any case, what do we actually call creativity? What do we call creativity? I am not so sure that those in leadership today in our profession who normally should be teaching the younger ones are themselves looking at where we are coming from and where we should be headed. Because honestly, there is nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, that has changed as far as the rules of creativity are concerned. But are we applying those rules? Do we know what the rules of creativity? Up until 2 days ago, Jay Bankole, we are in constant touch. He's in touch with me from the United States, particularly after this book thing and all that. I mean, I wish that we can get Jay Bankole to come and talk to some of our creative eggheads here about really what is creativity and what should we be doing. Today, I sit, I'm an observer from outside looking in. I sit in my house and I'm watching television and I see commercials that are coming on. And everything that I see is dancing and dancing and dancing. Every little thing is about dance. Then those who do real estate and they're doing promotion, everything you find are people turning meat into catapults. Everybody's pulling at beef and things. I'm like, what's wrong with us? Creativity is all about something that makes the consumer to smile, for an eye drop, for him to reflect. It's not what we are doing. It's not mostly of what we are doing today. I mean, the other day, I sat down, I was here, my grandchildren, because I spend a lot of time with those grandkids. I just love those grandkids. I wish I was as young as they are. Very innocent people. So there was a commercial that played, and the little boy, my grandson, the oldest of my grandsons, is going to be 8. And he said, Grandpa, what exactly are they advertising? Is it not? And he mentioned the product guide. So I said, yes. He said, but what has this thing they've done? What has it got to do with, he mentioned the whatever. And my wife said, thank you, my Pekin. Because she also holds the same view.
Yeah.
We waste clients' money, produce commercials that really have no relevance to what we are selling. And yet, if we understand that the essence of advertising is to make a consumer take a buying decision, full stop, take a buying decision in favor of your client's brand. We're just doing things that have no relevance, and unfortunately, the ignorance as permeates our industry is also worse on the client side. They don't even understand. Insofar as we do some razzmatazz, they are happy with it. But there are those of us who are watching and saying, no, this is not the way these things should be done. So really, yes, there is room for creativity, but I'm not so sure it is the direction. And, I'm sorry, this is fact. This is fact. Some of you may not like what I'm saying, but I promise you, I am also a stakeholder in the business. Because if truth be told, I don't know anybody who has as much investments as I have in your business than myself today. I don't know. From that perspective, I'm an interested stakeholder. We can't be doing things like this. We need to hold ourselves back and say, what are we doing? What are we doing? And I promise you, if the rules were to change tomorrow and expatriates were allowed to come here and own 70% or 65%, they'll bring their own people and then they will turn this whole thing upside down. That's the truth. The only problem is that the size of the market is too small. So overall, when they bring people, it's going to cost a lot of money. When you look at your overhead opposite your revenue, it's not going to work out. So maybe they won't be able to bring people, you know. But I promise you, we are not headed in the right direction as far as creativity is concerned. I'm sorry, that's my view.
So I'll take the last question because time is fast spent. The last question is from Tommy Ogunlesi. So sorry if I can't ask your question. It's for the time challenge that we have. So it says, question for Mr. Shobanjo. Given how many ex-insiders had left to start up successful agencies that became quite strong challengers or competitors to Insight, did you remotely at any point see any as a threat to the business or have cause to lose sleep over any? Interesting question. Hello, sir.
Sorry, I can't.
Okay, sorry. Can I take it again, sir? Okay. Can you hear me now, sir? Okay, can you hear me now, sir?
Yes. Now
okay,
I can hear you.
So let me take the question again. So this question for you, sir. It says, given how many ex-insiders had left to start up successful agencies that became quite strong challengers or competitors to Insight, did you remotely at any point see any of them as a threat to the business or have cause to lose sleep over them?
You want my honest answer?
Yes, sir.
If the person that asked the question would believe me, no, I don't lose sleep. I don't. That is not to say that you know, one of the things that killed the automobile industry in America many years ago, all those top 3 American companies, was that when the Japanese came, the Americans didn't bother about them. They didn't care about them until suddenly you found that for every 10 cars you find on American roads, 6 of them were foreign and they were Japanese, you know. So it will be foolhardy on the part, and you know, the same thing happened to us when we started Insight. Nobody looked at us. All of the Lintases and OBMs and the grants, they didn't look at us. Of course, it would be foolhardy not to look at what competition is doing. Because don't forget, a lot of these guys were people who had worked with us. They understand they've acquired a lot of expertise and knowledge and all that. So it will be foolhardy on your part not to say, look at what Lanre is doing, look at what Steve Babariko is doing, look at what you have to look at what they're doing. But I mean, in other words, you say to your guys, you need to fight harder, you need to work harder, you need to work smarter. Otherwise, because like I always say, being number one is not a birthright at all. You've got to fight for it. You've worked hard for it and fight hard for it. So we look at what competition is doing. We talk about what competition is doing. Of course we do. But I don't lose sleep because the critical words there are lose sleep. I don't lose sleep. But I encourage people to work harder, to be more creative, because the truth is they may not be as good as some of these people that we are talking about individually. You know, But what the Lanres and the Steves may not have is the collective power that we have, because, you know, I mean, it will take a bit of time for them to be to acquire that. I mean, that's fact of life. So you have key talents that have left, so they're going to, and they're also working very hard. So you just need to tell your guys, you need to work much harder than you are doing now, because you now have 3 or 4 or 5 insights fighting against you from outside. But that, you know, it's true. I mean, that's yeah. But it's, you know, but I don't lose sleep over it. I don't.
Yeah. I mean, I that is natural. I mean, you are the hunter. If I go back to the book again, that you were inspired by Professor Shoyinka to be a hunter. And I think that's the hunter that makes you smell opportunities and go for it. You know, I was going to say something as Steve started off talking about going to that black cupboard to see the work I used to do at MCNA. What he should also know is that when I joined Insight, there was this store where you used to store your past editions of campaign and advertising aid. And I used to go there and sit down and go through everything. And that brought me up to speed in terms of, you know, my career and seeing further, like Insight used to say, seeing ahead. Because it was a time before the internet became as pervasive as we have now. So that was the best way I could teach myself what was going on outside Nigeria. So thank you for storing those things. They really worked out so well for people like me. It's been a very exciting session. The best way to wrap up the year, I mean, people keep saying 2020 is bad, but it's a bright, you know, thing from 2020, having the time to speak with you. I'll just wrap up now. I just want a last word from you. For that young person who's probably 32 like you were when you were at Grant, going to and having this bug of starting an agency that's become an institution, what would you have as some parting words, knowing where we are now?
I think the future is bright. I think I was somewhere, my friend and colleague, Steve, he said, I think it was at my book launch. And he said, you know, that people ask him, is there a future in this business? Is there, and, you know, that he tells them that indeed there is a future. I believe there's a future in the business. I think there's a future in the business. But what we need to understand now is that I don't think, and I may just be wrong, I don't think that clients respect our people as much as they used to do in the past.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, in the past, clients really saw us as partners. And I'm going back 25 years, 20 years. Clients really saw agency people as partners. They won't even move. They will not do anything. They would consult with us. They would get our input. Today, I think clients see themselves as being, they just dole things out to us, as it were, you know. And that's coming from, and I hope that I'm wrong, there's a perception that, you know, we don't have people who are sufficiently smart enough. And that explains, even if you look at the chain, they always bring it in at the end of the whole process. Okay, we've done everything, so go and advertise it for us. What about from when the product itself was being conceived? Did they ask for our insight? And let me give you one example. In 1981, I think 81 or 82, when Cocoa Industries decided to go into the cocoa-based beverage market, because they were doing commodity before then. They would just export their either cocoa or, you know, cocoa pods or even powdered cocoa and things like that. When we went to them, when we went to pitch the business, they invited 13 agencies. It's in the book as well.
Yeah. So
now, you know, the interesting thing at that time, this was 19, just imagine we were young agency. We didn't go there to show them advertising. This is the advertising that, because these guys had never done anything like this before. And they caught that, no, how can we do this thing? Not only did we go into the marketing communication side of the business as part of our pitch, we spoke to them about sales and distribution. Who would they, not been in that business, who would be the best sales organization? And then we found a company called Bashar Luttinger at the time. They were distributors. We recommended Bashar Luttinger. We didn't know Bashar Luttinger from Adam. We recommended them. We told them what their price point would be, because we had looked at the various prices of the competitors, Ovaltine, Milo, Bonvita, all those kind of, there was one other one. So we said to them, do your packs in this side. We went into things like that, all right? Mm-hmm. So we did sales, we did marketing, we did advertising for them. We did a whole lot of things from conception. We even advised them as to how smooth their powder should be. And then we worked with them on finding the name of the product. We were the ones that found the name Vitalo for them. You understand what I'm saying? Today, which client engages an agency in that process? So resultantly, they just see us as those ones, after all is done, we tell them to just go and create advertising. That's not who we should be. We should be consultants. That's why the Accentures and the KPMG, suddenly we realize that they are understand market to work on their side. They can also afford to actually buy advertising agencies and fold them together and deliver, which is what now globally. Lulu talked about it the other day. He posted something on Fellows of APCON and all that. And so I just laughed. That's been going on for 2 years now, 3 years actually. You understand what I'm saying? So, and it is because of that that clients also pay us whatever they feel like. We cannot charge enough for the services that we are capable of rendering. So we need to change the whole thing. We must change, and we are not just a creative agency because we create advertisements or create communications. We even must change that in calling us that, to be honest. Because otherwise we are not going to be properly rewarded for the services that we are capable of bringing to the party, or that we should actually be bringing to the party, which we are not doing, by the way. We stay back, wait for client brief to go and develop advertising. That's wrong. That's wrong. If the future of this business is not going to be jeopardized, we need to expand our offerings and let clients understand what we are capable of bringing to the party. Otherwise, we'll become endangered because the consultancies are going to get in fact, the totality of the business, they're going to take it off our hands if we are not careful. That's my worry.
Thank you so much.
And you see that the global agencies are doing it. I think the global agencies are doing it. So we need to wake up.
Thank you so much, sir. I can't thank you enough. On behalf of AAAN LAIF Management Board, we would like to thank you for taking time to share your experience with us and to inspire us at a time like this when things are on the gloomy side. So you were wondering why is Lanre asking me to come and talk? I've left the business. You can't leave the business, sir. We will always drag you at some point. So thank you. And you have a couple of ex-insiders on the call. Mr. Onobolu that you referred to earlier is there. Teju Mola, Tej. We have Komida Silva and a couple of other people. And of course, people, key players in our industry, Kunle Ogumefun, Ikechi Odibo, and a whole lot of people. We thank you. We can't thank you enough, and we look forward to. We will still, pray that you enjoy your retirement, as it were. but we'll always come to you when we need you for your support, and you've been showing that all the time. So congrats on your biography again. It's a splendid book. Somebody should actually create some mini series around it. You know, it's really interesting. It was good reading, I must say that. Thank you so much, and we wish you the very best of your retirement.
Thank you very much, Lanre. Thank you. It's been a pleasure being with you guys. I enjoyed myself. Thank you so very much.
Thank
and
you,
I
sir.
wish you a Merry Christmas.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay, sir. So thank you, everybody. And it's we've come to the end of LAIF and Direct, but LAIF Awards will still continue. The highlight of it being our awards tomorrow. It's all virtual. We will share the details. We'll be sharing the details. So go online. We have a live portal that we're going to show. We're also going to be on YouTube and other platforms. So it's the best of Nigerian creativity, and it will be there for everybody to celebrate. And I'd like to thank the Exco of AAA in particular for allowing that to happen, because we had enough excuse to say it's 2020, nobody's going to cane us for not having LAIF Awards this year. So it's the 15th edition, and we've kept at it. And surprisingly, we even had more entries this year than we did last year, despite the pandemic. So thank you so much for all of this. We look forward to having you on board tomorrow from 5 o'clock tomorrow until around 8 o'clock. We'll be celebrating the best of Nigerian advertising. Thank you, and do have a pleasant evening. Bye-bye.